So we've got our feet just underneath our hips and our toes are pointing forwards. And we're just going to allow ourselves to take a little moment to allow the breath to come and go, and we'll just allow ourselves to really zone in on how our body's feeling today with a nice deep breath. So those feet are just underneath the hips, and we can take a moment to just allow ourselves to maybe rock the weight from side to side. Bringing the weight into the centre, and then we'll allow ourselves to gently rock forwards and then back into the heel. Forwards and back into the heel. And then we'll find that place where our weight comes right into the centre of the 2 feet. And once we find that place, we're going to just soften into the knees and soften into the hips. A moment to just draw up through the arches of our feet, so feeling that we can really draw up through the centre of the foot and feel an energy start to come up through the legs. And then we'll bring our awareness into our pelvis, and we'll gently tip the pelvis forwards and gently tip the pelvis back. And we'll do that range of movement, gently tipping forwards, gently tipping back. And we'll find that place where it feels as though our bucket of water is nice and level, so we're not tipping out of the front or out of the back. And when we find that place, we'll allow the tailbone to descend down towards the space between the heels. And we'll allow ourselves to lengthen really tall through the spine. Good. Feeling as if you were a puppet on a string being extended up towards the space above you. Let's lift the shoulders, and we'll roll the shoulders back and down. Good. And again, the shoulders lift. And we roll back and down. Good. Let's take 3 more like that. Shoulders ease towards one another and sink down towards the tailbone. Let the head extend up and out and away. Take a deep breath, and we're going to draw in through the pelvic floor muscles. So we've got that sense of connection through the pelvic floor muscles, gently lifting up. A drawing in through the belly button. And we're going to use that core strength to keep us really nice and stable. And at the same time, we're going to allow the breath to really expand in and out of the rib cage. Moments to feel that we've got that core connection and we've got the breath flowing. Breath to flow nice and freely. Movement to that, so let's allow the right arm to float forwards and up. And we'll breathe in as the arm floats back down, changing over to the left arm, let the left arm float forwards and up. Breathing in as the arm floats back down, right arm floats forwards and up. Lovely, softening down, changing over to the opposite side. Open out to the side, so we'll just draw the arm out to the side, let the shoulder stay sinking down the back, and then opening out to the opposite side. And softening down. Good. Keeping that going for me. Opening gently out. And floating back down. Changing over to the opposite side. Lovely. And then hold it for me here. We'll allow ourselves to release out through the neck. So we'll allow the head to gently release over to one side. Head into the centre. Up and over to the opposite side. The head lift up, over to the first side, over to the second side. Head into the centre, just let the head gently rotate round. Breathing in as we return back, and then rotating round to the opposite side. Gently coming back to the centre, rotating round. We'll do that once more on each side to get that sense of release through the neck. Come into the centre, let's allow the chin to tuck towards the chest. We'll let the head become nice and heavy, and we'll start to roll gently down through the spine. Coming down through the vertebrae bit by bit, piece by piece. Take a nice deep breath at the bottom. And then breathing out as we roll back up through the spine. We lift the shoulders, roll the shoulders back and down, and both arms float forwards and up. And again, floating the arms back down. Let's take that roll down through the spine. Rolling down, releasing through the top of the head. Rolling down through the vertebrae. Nice deep breath at the bottom. And breathing out as we roll up through the spine. Just roll the shoulders gently back and down. Both arms float forwards and up. And we breathe in as the arms float back down. Let's take a little bend of the knees when we get there, just keeping the torso nice and long, and just allow it to be the knees that take the bend, and then we lengthen. Once again, rolling down through the spine. At the bottom, and then breathing out as we roll back up through the spine. Head comes on top, we lift the shoulders, roll them back and down, both arms float forwards and up. Breathing in as the arms float back down. We soften through the knees, let the arms open out to the side. Lovely, and lengthening the legs. Let's take our side bends from there. Up and over to the right side, head extends out and away. Through the centre, up and over to the opposite side. Top arm in do, so we can allow that arm to lift up and away. Coming through the centre, up and over to the opposite side. Each side. The centre, just drawing the fingertips in towards one another. We'll take a nice deep breath, connecting to the core, and we'll allow the rib cage to gently rotate round to the right side. Breathing in as we return back to the centre, and then rotating round to the opposite side. Centre. Rotating gently round. Really nice and stable and still. We're keeping those pointing forwards as we just allow ourselves to gently open out through the rib cage. We will allow the elbows to go wide, fingers point upwards. Rib cage gently rotates around. Eyes stay sort of pointing out from the rib cage. Breathe in as we return back to the centre. Rotate round to the second side. Lovely. And then we're going to add in a little arm lift in between each one. So we'll lift the arms up and then draw the arms down. Let the elbows go really wide as you do that, and then let the rib cage rotate round once again. Breathing in as we come back to the centre. Arms lift up. Pull the elbows and the hands back so we get that nice opening across the chest. And again. The blades really pull down the back. One more on each side. The arms to release there. Give them a little shake out. Good. Let's take a little bit of balance work. So we'll take a deep breath and we'll allow the right foot to gently lift away from the floor. Floating that foot back down, and we'll change over to the other side. And floating that foot down, changing over to the right side. And if we can keep the hips nice and still as we take that, and then we'll allow that knee to open out to the side. And we'll draw the knee back into the centre and float gently down. Lovely. Other side, we lift. Let the knee open out to the side. Breathing in as the leg returns and floating the leg back down. Good. This time, as the leg extends away, we'll allow one arm to float forwards and one arm to float to the side. Knee opens out. Draw the leg back in and float floating down, changing over to the other side. So the leg lifts, opposite arm floats forwards, lovely. And then if you want to, you can transfer, change the arm. So we'll lift, knee opens out to the side, drawing the leg back in and floating gently down. Now I've got a little challenge and I can't quite work out how it's going to work, so let's see. We allow the leg to open out to the side, leg comes back to the centre, see if we can draw the hands in and then we'll rotate towards the leg that's lifted. And then we draw back to the centre and float back down. Good. Opposite leg lifts. We'll do our little knee opening. Tips in. Let the rib cage rotate round. Going back to the centre and floating gently down. Good. Now if you want to, we can do the same thing, but we can keep the arms as they are. So we lift here, keep this arm lengthening out from your rib cage, so as you rotate round, the arm stays pointing forwards of you. Breathe in as we come back to the centre and floating down. So it's a heavier weight with the arm lengthening out in front of us, which makes it harder to stay balanced in that rotation. Brace into the core and we rotate round. Breathing in as we return back to the centre and floating gently down. Good, let's take a little rise from there. So just pressing the heels gently away from the floor and then softening them back down. And again, the heels gently lift, whoops, and floating back down. We'll push into the big toe as we take the rise. Good. From there, let's take a little roll down through the spine and we'll bring ourselves onto hands and knees. Let's just break down our push-up exercise, which I know doesn't suit all of us. If you'd rather do three roll-ups and then 3 push-ups, that's fine. Otherwise, we'll release through the top of the head. We'll roll down through the spine, bringing ourselves onto hands and knees, and we'll take the hands slightly wider than the shoulders. The chest is going to lower to the space between the hands and we're going to be really strong through our core. And we breathe out as we push up and away from the floor. We tuck the toes under and we walk the hands gently in and roll up through the spine. So we're taking 2 more like that. We're going to see if we can allow ourselves to move a little bit further forwards each time. So we'll see if we can open up the angle of the hip. So maybe the hips are slightly further forwards than the knees, but the hands are still wide to the shoulders so that you're not, you're bringing your chest between your hands and not the eyes. Last one. Rolling down through the spine. Forwards. Let's see if anyone fancies coming so far forwards that they could tuck the toes under and lift the knees, in which case chest lowers, again elbows nice and wide, and we breathe out as we push up and away. Now just allow your hands to come underneath the shoulders for me. We're going to have a little play around here with our full plank position. The shoulders are gliding down the back. Now if you're on a kneeling position here, I want you to just tuck your toes under and lift your knees an inch or so away from the floor. So wherever we are, we're just going to see about lifting the knees a little bit with the toes tucked under. And we'll lower the knees, we'll sit back onto our heels, and we'll lengthen the arms. Well done, guys. Let's just walk the hands over to the right side and we'll allow the left arm to stretch out and away from us. And as we do, we'll push into the left hip so we get a nice sense of length across the side of the body. taking the hands around to the opposite side, and we'll allow that right arm to reach, and we'll allow the right hip to push away, letting yourself really stretch into that side of the body. Lovely, that's it, good, 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 good. Hands back into the centre. Let's take a big step forwards with our right leg and take a little bit of movement through the pelvis there. So we'll allow ourselves to take a little rock forwards and back, a little tipping forwards and back. Good. Yeah, that's better, Andy. Yeah, if the foot comes a bit further forward, it'll feel more stable. Yeah, lovely. Good. From there, we can allow ourselves to just ease a little bit further forwards into the hip. You might need the foot to go a bit further forwards for you, so that as you come into this stretch, your knee doesn't go over your toe. Yeah, good. Nice and deep with the breath. And then we'll change over to the other leg. If you can do it without touching the ground, it's really good balance work. If you can't, don't worry. Big step forwards. Good. From there, once again, we'll do that tipping of the hip. So tipping the hip gently forwards, tipping back, taking it through those two extremes. It's slightly wide, so they're sort of hip distance apart, or maybe a little bit wider. You'll get a bit more stability in this position as well. So from there, you might want to shift the foot a little bit further forwards, and then we ease gently forwards into that stretch. Nice and deep. We can allow our weight to come onto that front knee if we want to. Releasing from there, bringing our weight gently back. Now, we're going to do some work on our fronts. So if we can, we'll come to a lying position on our tummies. If there's any reason why tummies don't really work on hands and knees. You can basically do all the exercises on hands and knees, but worth letting me know, and then I can give you those alternatives. So let's start off with the hands just underneath our hands on top of one another, and our forehead resting on our hands. Moment there to really kick into those core muscles. So we're going to allow ourselves to draw up through the pelvic floor, draw in through the belly button, and find a real sense of being stabilised through the pelvis. With the breath, we'll allow ourselves to breathe out and stretch the right leg away from us, lengthening that leg out and away. And then we breathe in as the leg returns. And then we breathe out and we stretch the opposite leg away. Breathe in as the leg returns. So we're changing legs each time. The leg stretches out and away with a little squeeze in the bottom, and we float back down. Changing over to the opposite leg, stretching away. Breathing in as we float back down. So we're changing legs each time. Keep that going for me. Good, good. Good. Finishing off on your second side, and allow the legs to rest on down. And then we're going to take a moment to keep that connection through the core. We'll glide the shoulders down the back, we'll let the head extend out in the way, and the breastbone can gently lift away. And we'll breathe in as we float back down. So again, lower back stays really nice and long, connecting into the core muscles, strengthening through the lower back nice and long. And we're looking to create that movement through the upper spine. As you lift on up this time, we'll let the elbows pull wide, and they'll just squeeze towards the rib cage, and then we'll draw the hands back in. And again, we'll lift, squeeze the elbows towards the rib cage, draw back in. And then we'll have a little look at combining these two exercises. So we've got our little pull, shoulders down, elbows squeeze in nice and tight, draw the head back in. From there, right leg stretches away, floats down, left leg stretches away and floats down. And again, we lift the upper body, breathe down, right leg stretches away and floats back down, left leg stretches away. Good. One more of that combination. Off there, let's roll onto our side. And we'll see if we can be as lengthened as we possibly can be. So the bottom arm is nice and long and the head rests down. We'll allow the shoulders to be on top of one another. If you want to rest the top hand on the floor to start off with, do. Take a moment to really stretch yourself out. So you want to feel as though you're as long as you can be. Nice deep breath, breathing out and stretch both the legs away. See, when you're short like me, you spend a lot of your time trying to be as long as you possibly can be. Stretching that top leg away from you. Nice tall through the body, and it's this waist bit that we want to make really, really long. Gorgeous. Good. Keep breathing for me. Now, let's take a moment to just think about this bottom leg. Let's let it soften down, and then let's let it lift on up. We're going to do that 3 more times. Soften the bottom leg down. Now you've got that nice squeeze in the tummy and you're going to lift it up. Out there, and then I immediately forget how many I've done. I think this is the 3rd one. So bottom leg lifted. See if you can give it an extra stretch away from you. Lovely. Now we're going to do the same thing with the top leg. Top leg's going to take a little lift and lower. Beautiful. And lift and lower. Lovely. 3 more. Now we're working for stamina here as well as balance. So just by having your legs lifted, you're really working your core stabilizing muscles. To challenge your balance further here, we can do a forwards kicking action. Now, take a deep breath. You're going to do 5 in your own time. The leg starts to move forwards. Now what we don't want to do is we don't want the hips to come with us because we'll fall over. We want to avoid cheating by knocking the shoulder back. That's my little cheat. So we've got 3 more, and as you do it, just see if you can allow the leg to lengthen out and away from you. And it might be that it goes like ½ an inch, and that's fine. Let it be where the challenge is for you. And then floating those legs down, soften in through the knees and let the top hip tip slightly forwards. You're going to squeeze in through the tummy and we'll allow the top knee to gently lift. Gently lower. Good. And again we lift and lower. We'll allow those knees to glue together. Let's allow both the feet to lift. Keep that nice strength in the core. Good. Lift and we lower. Hold the toes up there, allow the knee to lift. Let's stretch that leg away. Beautiful. And lower down. Let's do that again. We lift, extend away, lower down. 1 more, and we'll see if we can take that little circle of the legs. So we've got 3, 2, Yeah, lovely. And floating the legs back down. Well done, guys. Let's take hold of that right foot and take a little stretch into the front of the thigh. To sort of release a little bit into that stretch, you might find the knee can sort of point a little bit further away from you. You might find that you can tuck the tailbone under to extend that stretch a little bit more. And also just be aware, some of us, the knee kind of pops up towards the sky. So we want to make sure that we keep it in line with our hip. So we really get a nice little stretch through the front of the thigh. And release in there. Let's pop a cushion underneath our head if we've got one to hand. And we'll take our opening up like a book. So I was talking to my daughter about stretches this week, and I was talking about how you'll be doing a stretch and your body will naturally, without you realising, it'll find the easiest pathway for you. So you have to kind of be really aware of what lines you're aiming to achieve, so that the leg doesn't do a cheeky little sneak off in a different direction, which will take the stretch away, make it move to a different place, which probably is a place where your body's more comfortable. Both she and I are really more mobile in our hips than we are in our hamstrings, so our legs naturally want to move to release that space for us. But they don't like the hamstring stretches. Last one there. And we'll just see if we can allow ourselves to release into the glutes while we're here. So this leg that's just been working, we're going to give it a little stretch. So we'll come onto our back and we'll bring that foot across the knee that's bent. And just allow it to release out to the side. Now, if you can do, we'll weave the hands around the leg that's got the foot on the floor. If this creates a lot of strain in the upper body, you can put that foot, the one that you've just lifted, onto a wall or onto the sofa or something, and that just takes the strain out of the upper body, and you can kind of shuffle yourself in as you feel you want to get the stretch that's right for you. That's to ease again. You might find that that leg can ease in towards you. And on that note of what me and Anna were talking about, see if you can take a little shift over to the right side and a little shift over to the left side, and just see whether there's a spot on this stretch that you go, oh, that's the one, that's it, I've just found the space. Yeah, sometimes we come into a place where it feels really nice and comfortable, but actually if you just shift a few inches, you'll find a deeper stretch. And release in there. Let's come up to a seated position. Remember which side you've just been working on. I say remember which side you've just been working on. You might have to remind me. Letting the legs go wide if we can. If in this position you find that you're being pulled backwards, you might want to pop a cushion underneath your bottom, or you might want to allow the knees to bend slightly, whichever works for you. Good. So we're lengthening up nice and tall here. Let's draw the fingertips in towards one another. Take a nice deep breath from there, and we'll allow the rib cage to gently rotate round to the right side. And we'll breathe in as we return back to the centre. And then we're rotating round to the opposite side. Good. Keep that going for me. Now, if you can stay in this position, it's a marvellous thing. If you prefer to bring the feet together, let the knees go wide, that's all good. If you'd rather bring the legs in a bit closer, that's fine. Feet on the floor, knees bent. Just finding the place where you can be really lengthened tall in this position. When we come towards the right side, we'll just allow the left arm to reach and lengthen. So you're going on the diagonal, but you're keeping the left buttock grounded. And we lift, and we rotate gently round, reaching across the body, keep the right buttock grounded. So we don't want any daylight underneath the bottom. Just a little squeeze in through the tummy to really support us in that stretch. Give the legs a little jiggle in, and then we'll just take a little bit of a hamstring stretch. So we'll allow the legs to lengthen, we'll allow the spine to lengthen, and let's take a moment to lift the shoulders here, because as I said, this is the one that my body doesn't like and will do anything to get out of. And then we'll roll the shoulders back in the opposite direction, so we'll bring them up and over. And as we do, we're trying to really think about gluing those legs together, and we'll lift nice and tall, let the shoulders glide down the back and just bring the hands by our side. So for me, this is quite a lot of work. My hip flexors have to work quite hard to keep me upright here. I'm working quite hard to stay nicely lengthened. I've got a nice tight squeeze in the tummy, and I'm breathing nice and deeply. So we can stay here, making sure we've got that stability through the core and allowing ourselves to be really lengthened, or if you feel you want a little bit more, we can ease forwards into that hamstring stretch. That's lovely. Good. And then we're lifting nice and tall. Let's bring ourselves down to the other side. Luckily I had a cushion on the first side, otherwise I wouldn't remember which one I'd just done. So we'll come all the way down. You don't need the cushion for a moment. Good. Doing whatever you need to do to lengthen yourself out in that nice long line. The bottom arm is nice and long, the head rests down. The shoulders are the shoulders are on top of one another, the hips are on top of one another. I'll try and point to the right body part, that would help, wouldn't it? So we've got those legs on top of one another, and we take a nice deep breath. We'll allow the top leg to stretch and lengthen away from us. Good. And that leg is lengthening into line with the hip socket. That looks great. Good. We take a nice deep breath, and once again we're going to lift that bottom leg and we extend away. Now you've got your top hand resting on the floor probably, and then if you feel you can do, the arm rests by our side. I've got a level with you. When I started doing Pilates, to lift my hand off was a massive challenge. And then when I started teaching, I was so cross when people in my class could do it in the first week, because I couldn't understand why they could do it and I couldn't. So we take a nice deep breath, and that bottom leg's going to take a little lift and lower. So we'll lower the leg back down and then lift and lengthen away. And again, we lower and then we lift and lengthen away. So it's really thinking about that bottom leg extending towards the skirting board. There'll be some work in the quad, there'll be some work in the inner thigh, and it's all marvellous. Let's keep that bottom leg lifted this time. Keep the bottom leg lifted and stretching away, and the top leg is going to take a little lift and lower. Beautiful. Lovely. Now as you lift and lower there, I want you to allow yourself to keep the hips nice and still. So check that they're not tipping back and forwards, and we're not opening up through the thigh. We're keeping the thigh nicely pointing forwards, or the knee pointing forwards, should I say. One for me. Now take a moment to check you've got as much length between your ribs and your hip as you can. Stable through the pelvis, and the top leg moves forwards and then draws back. So it might be a teeny weeny, few millimetres of a move forwards, and that's absolutely fine. Obviously I try and make it a bit bigger, because otherwise you can't see what I'm doing. But it won't necessarily be that big on the first outing, and it might not be that big on the second, third or fourth time you try it out. But the further you go, the more of a challenge it is to keep yourself really well balanced. Fabulous. Well done, guys. Floating the legs down while softening through the knees. Oh, my legs are tired now. We'll allow the top hip to tip gently forwards. Good. Scooping in through the tummy, that top knee gently lifts and lowers. Lovely. Now keep that going for me. This one's a funny one because you kind of got to have a slightly wonky angle on the hip, and almost imagine that I've got my hand pressing on the back of your pelvis, tipping you forwards, and you're going to stay there, not let the pelvis move back and forth. Good. I believe we've got one more. And then we'll glue the knees together and allow the feet to lift. So keeping that squeeze in through the tummy, softening gently down. And again, squeeze in, toes lift, and float back down. 3 more. And it's going to stay up there. So we'll lift the toes up, lift the knee up, extend the leg away, draw the toe back down, and knee comes back down. Squeeze, 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 lift the knee, extend away, floating down. I reckon we got one more in us. Let's allow the leg to lift, extend away, little circle of the leg. So right the way from the hip socket we circle, 2, last one, and floating the leg back down, taking hold of that top foot, and a nice long stretch for the thigh. Nice, that's it, lovely. Breath, and again just checking that that knee's not popping up towards the sky, but it's nicely in line with the knee, with the hip. That's it, lovely. Good, letting the head be nice and heavy, shoulders melting down the back. And we'll take a breath there. Let the legs release and allow both the arms to come forwards. If you've got a little cushion to hand, pop it underneath your head. And we'll take a nice deep breath and allow the top arm to gently open. Eyes are fixed on the hand. Breathing in as we draw the arm back. And again, opening the top arm. Breathing in as we draw the arm back in. Lovely. In there, let's come on to our back. We're going to take that leg that was doing all the work just then, that's going to come across the knee, and then we'll let that knee fall out to the side. And we'll weave the hands around the thigh that's got the foot on the floor, and we'll ease the leg in closer to us. When we're there, we'll see if we can find a nice squeeze in the tummy. I'm going to draw the knees in nice and close. Drawing it into that glute stretch and then releasing there for me. Good. So from there, you can allow yourself to find a nice constructive rest position. So we'll allow ourselves to bring their feet onto the floor and the knees bent. If you want to use a cushion underneath your head, by all means do. If you feel as though now's the time to get rid of it, that's fine. If once you're there you feel as though your kind of chin's jutting upwards, you might want to put the cushion underneath your head. That might be helpful. So let's allow ourselves to bring our feet onto the floor. We'll let the knees bend. We'll let the arms rest down by our sides. And we'll just gently roll the head from side to side. To come into the centre, and we'll allow the chin to tuck in a little bit, not so much that our chin's touching our chest, but just so there's a little sense of length across the back of the neck, and you've definitely got that lovely sense of length. And the shoulders rest down into the floor. let's bring our awareness to our pelvis. So let's imagine that on our pelvis is a tray, and on that tray is one marble. We're going to roll the marble towards our belly button by pressing the lower back into the floor. And then we'll tip the pelvis and we'll exaggerate the curve in the lower back. Marble rolls towards the pubic bone. So we take it through those two extremes, tipping gently forwards and back, letting the weight of the pelvis stay into the ground. Find that place where it feels as though hip bone and pubic bone are level with one another. The rib cage can soften down. Now, once you've got that nice connection in through the pelvic floor and through the abdomen, we'll start to create a little bit of movement. So, let's allow ourselves to be drawn in through the pelvic floor, and at the same time, we're going to allow the breath to flow wide and full. Now, imagine that your rib cage is sinking down into the floor with each inward breath, and then releasing on the outward breath. So we've got a sense of really filling the back of the rib cage as well as the sides and the front. Take a nice deep breath from there. As you breathe out, you're going to slide the right leg away from you. Breathing in as the leg returns. And then we'll slide the opposite leg away. Breath in as we allow the leg to return. As the right leg slides away, let's allow the left arm to lengthen up and over the head. We'll keep the shoulders sinking down into the ground. Breathe in as the arm and the leg return. Changing over to the opposite side. Add in our little knee opener. So we'll stretch the leg away from us, and then as the leg draws in, we'll allow that knee to just take a little opening to the side. So the knee gently opens out, and then we draw the leg back in, changing over to the opposite side. Opposite arm to leg extends away. Breathing in as the leg returns, and then the knee opens out to the side. If you want to from here, as the leg draws back in, we'll allow the knee to open out to the side, keeping the hips nice and stable and still. Breathe in as the leg returns and floating down, changing over to the opposite side. So the foot can just float away from the floor, and that'll make it a slightly heavier lever. And we'll have to work much harder to keep the hips really stable with one another. Good. To that knee opening, let's let the knee open, draw the leg back in, and then we're just going to stretch the toe up for the sky, seeing if you can do that without losing your neutral spine position, and then bend the knee, float the foot back down. So again, we stretch the leg away from us, arm extends up and over the head. We breathe in and the knee comes in. We're going to allow the knee to open out to the side. Draw in that knee back in, and then see how far you can stretch the leg without losing your neutral spine position. So it might be not quite up to the sky, and then we'll float that foot back down. Good. Let's do that again. This time we're going to add on a little knee circle. So we'll allow that knee to lift. Knee opens out to the side, hips stay nice and stable and still. We stretch the leg up to an angle that you're comfortable with and you can still maintain neutral. We'll take a little knee circle in one direction, and then we'll take that knee circle in the other direction. And then floating that foot back down, change to the other side. So we stretch and lengthen the leg away. Breathing in as the leg returns. Knee opens out to the side. And stretching that leg away. Bending through the knee. Find that place where it's a challenge for you, and then circle the leg. So the longer you've made this lever, the harder it will be for you to keep those hips really nice and stable and still as you circle. Good, floating gently down. Keep that going for me. Once again on each side. Good, that looks fabulous. Well done, guys. Finish off this knee circle on the second side. Bring the left knee in and give it a good hug. And we'll allow the right leg to stretch away from us. And as we do, we'll press the lower back into the floor. We'll allow that knee to hug in nice and tight. Draw the right knee and give the right knee a really good hug. And then we'll let that left leg slide onto the floor, or the foot slide onto the floor, and slide the leg away. Drawing that left leg in, give it a good hug. So we're going to give both legs a good hug, and we're going to have a little explore of our two-legged 100 position. Any of us that know we've got rectus abdominis issue, hernias of the belly button, we will want to work with one leg lifted instead of two. If you're happy to try out your two-legged 100 position, this is where we'll start from. So we're squeezing in through the tummy. Let's allow ourselves to stay still through the legs, and we'll bring the arms to rest down by our side. Now, if once you're in this position, you can already feel that your back started to pull away from the floor, then work with one leg lifted instead of two. If you can still feel the back's pressing into the floor, your belly button's really pulling down, and you feel ready for a little bit of extra challenge, we'll allow the toes to stretch away from us a little bit, and just move until you get to that place where it feels like a challenge. Maybe the knees are hovering roughly over the hip socket, and the calf is at a 90-degree angle. Any strain in the back, one leg floats back down, we keep one leg lifted. Take a nice deep breath for me there. As you breathe out, you're going to move the thigh bone so that the foot can touch the ground. And we breathe in as we lift. If you're working with one leg lifted, do 5 on one side, then change to the other side. If you're working with 2 legs lifted, we'll change legs each time. Now you can have a little play around with this if you want to. Just as we did before, where we opened up the angle of the knee, have a little play with that here. So you can open the angle of the knee. The knee's going to stay at the same angle as you dip down as you come back up, but it means that the leg will essentially be a longer lever. I have to stretch my leg a long way away to make it a longer lever. When you've done 5 on each side, allow yourself to bring the knees in and give them a good hug once again. The tummy from here. Again, we'll find our modified 100 position. So we've got the back pressing into the floor. We'll allow the knees to just gently release away from us so the knees come over the hip socket. If you're working with one leg lifted, allow that left foot to rest onto the floor, keep the right leg lifted. Now everyone, we're going to lengthen the arms up for the sky, we're going to let the shoulders glide down the back. So really feel as though you've got a sense that the rib cage is connected to the floor and the shoulders are connected to the floor. We take a breath, we start to circle the arms. Breathing out for half the circle, breathing in to complete the circle. Now if you're feeling really coordinated today, as the arm circles out, we stretch the leg away from us. As we return finish off the arms, the leg returns. If you're working with 2 legs lifted, you're changing legs each time. If you're working with 1 leg lifted, do 5 on that leg and then change over to the other side. We're going to keep the belly button squeezing in. We're going to keep the lower back pressing into the floor if we're working with 2 legs lifted. If you're working with 1 leg lifted, you're taking the opportunity to work in neutral, which will really allow you to connect to those deep abdominal muscles. Making sure that you're even on both sides. And when you feel as though you're even on both sides, bring the knees in and we'll give them a good hug. Then let one foot rest down onto the floor, and we'll allow the opposite foot to come down. Now, taking a little shoulder bridge to work for flexibility through the spine. If flexibility is not where you're at, where you don't want to focus on that, and you want to protect the back, we can take we can take pelvic lifts instead. If you know that really finding that movement through the spine would be good, we'll allow ourselves to press the lower back into the floor, tip the tailbone up, peeling the spine away from the ground. So if you imagine your spine like a snake, slithering gently up and away from the floor, knees, hips and shoulders into line with one another. We take a breath, we lift the arms for the sky, or maybe all the way over the head. Leave them there as you then float the vertebrae back down one by one. Start to notice if there are any sticky parts of the spine, any areas that don't want to move independently. Give those areas a bit of extra breath and a bit of extra time. As you return back to neutral, the arms come back by your side. If you want to, we can add a little abdominal curl up in, breathing in as we float back down. And then we move again into the shoulder bridge. Looking to find that articulation through the spine. Watch out for any wobbly knees. So the knees might shift from side to side occasionally. Just start to notice where that place is, where it does its little shift. And that might let you know that there's a little imbalance in the back. One side suddenly stronger than the other. And we'll just see if we can, as we go through, really work to find that articulation, find that symmetry. If we're taking the abdominal curl up, we're really pulling the tummy down. Don't let it pop upwards. Last one here. As you bring the arms back, let's allow the arms to lengthen up towards the sky. We're going to draw the hands together as if we've got a gun in our hand. I like to think this one's called the Charlie's Angel. I'm not sure what it's really called. We squeeze in through the tummy and allow the pelvis to be really stable. You've got your gun in your hand and you take the arm across you. Both arms come across you as if you're scanning the room with your gun. Now keep the pelvis on the floor and then draw back to the centre. Now reach across with the arms. Both elbows stay nice and long. So when you get to that point where one elbow wants to bend, you've gone far enough. Together so that the hands aren't sliding past one another, but they're staying nice and stable. It's essentially the upper part of our body's one nice unit, and the bottom, the pelvis is staying in one unit with the legs. And we're just getting a really good rotation across the torso there. As you come back into the centre, let's bring the knees in. Let's peel the head up towards the knees. Let's allow ourselves to rock gently forwards and back. And just take a few of these to release your back into the floor. So it should feel really nice. Like a little massage onto the back, and then if you can from there, we'll ping ourselves up to sitting. If not, we'll roll onto one side and come up to sitting that way instead. So from there, we'll take our curl in like a capital C. The hands come around the backs of the thighs. We lengthen up really nice and tall, and the shoulders glide down the back. So taking a deep breath, tip the tailbone under and curling into the lower back. And then we'll lengthen up nice and tall. We'll let those shoulders glide down the back. Now, initially, we'll just start to think about letting the lower back really find that movement. Then, as we feel more confident with it, we'll start to take it a little bit further, make it a larger movement. And let's see if this time we can lengthen the arms up for the sky. Each time we lift up nice and tall, and then we're bringing them in front of us as we curl gently down. Lifting up nice and tall. Good, keep that going for me. How's that going? Lovely, yeah, good. So if you find that the hip flexors start to scream at you, just allow the knees to tip out to the side a little, and it will take the strain out of the hip flexor. Really ambitious, and you've got this going on. We're going to stretch one leg out in front of us, knees are in line, we curl back, and then we lengthen up nice and tall. Change to the other leg, curling gently down, and curling up nice and tall. Anyone's feeling that you really want to give it a go? Both legs extend out and away, and we curl down, and we lengthen up, and floating the feet back down. I just sensed some filthy looks there. Couldn't completely see, but I sensed that there were some filthy looks coming my way. Let's allow ourselves to come into a crouch position. And we'll tuck those toes under. Take a gentle forwards and back, rocking over the foot. Allowing yourself to press the heels into the ground. Let the head become nice and heavy, and we'll gently roll up through the spine. Come on top, last thing of all. When we get there, let's lift the shoulders. We'll roll the shoulders back and down. And lifting the shoulders, roll them back and down. Lovely, just one more like that. And then just to release out through the spine, we're going to allow the arms to reach, and we'll keep a squeeze in the tummy. We take a little swing and we lift. A little swing and we lift. Good. If there are no blood pressure issues that need monitoring right now and you're feeling all happy, let the head release, let the back tip forwards. Take it nice and gently. Keep that connection through the core. Just one more. And let the arms open, shoulders glide down as we float down, and give it all a good shake out. Give yourself a round of applause. Well done, guys. So if there's any questions or feedback, do let me know.